Basketball wants to get back. They're going to get paid what they're getting paid to get back. It's going to be at Walt Disney World, we believe. But how will it impact the teams who have been sitting out for a while? What are some of the biggest questions for the Sixers? Talk to Darryl Ray, the Process Podcast, also a member of the 2016 national champion Villanova Wildcats. He'll be joining us to talk hoops and Sixers as we lead up to a return for the NBA. It looks like late July, early August. And what we want to get into is some Sixers stuff with this team. And, you know, Darryl, one thing I want to ask is, all right, first thing here is, can you envision a scenario of playing a high-level playoff game with nobody there? Like, do you think that is going to be an issue, or is this something that you guys are used to? Like when you were with the 16 Wildcats and you guys had inter squads and there's nobody there, you know, is the intensity high enough that it doesn't matter that there's nobody there, or will that be a odd feeling for a player?
I think it'll be a little odd for a player, but it's closer to like those preseason scrimmages we would have. Like one year we actually scrimmaged UNC, another year we scrimmaged Pitt in the preseason. Those games are very competitive, probably because you haven't played against anybody else in a while. They talked about they do carry this format out. They're going to have training camps, and you get tired of playing the dudes with the same uniform on. So that first chance to get at somebody else usually doesn't matter if the crowd's there or not.
So when the Sixers are 29-2 at home and 10-24 on the road, it's hard to explain to somebody why that is. Why are they so good at home? Why are they so good on the road? What do we think a neutral court with nobody there will do to them?
Coin toss. Just like you said, their record is such a up in the air thing. I think the reason their record was what it was at home versus on the road is because it's a young team. And with Jimmy Butler and J.J. Redick not being anymore, not having that veteran presence, like young teams, you hear about that all the time. They're great when they're in front of their crowds. They're not battle-tested or strong enough to go somewhere else and take it from somebody. And unfortunately, as much progress we thought the Sixers made, what we saw this year, they didn't really do it. But hopefully, you know, that coin toss go our way a couple of times and we can get a couple wins out of this.
You know, yesterday we had an NBA writer on who said that he had talked to some people around the league, and he thought these people around the league specifically mentioned Joel Embiid as a player who feeds off the fans, and that the Sixers and a guy like Embiid would be affected by no fans being in the crowd. And you wonder if that's the case for the Sixers. You know, if Embiid is just, I don't know, is he a bad player on the road? No, but he certainly seems to take it up a notch when he's at home. You wonder if the Sixers don't have anybody there and they're just playing in a empty gym, are they going to be what they really are, a 6 seed?
Yeah, man. I didn't even think about that. He definitely know he at home. He do the Euros. He be in the crowd and put the ear up and all that, and all that's good. But without that crowd, if he doesn't have that energy to feed off of, I mean, hopefully what it does is for it gives them the insight that they can do it without all that. You know, quite frankly, distractions. At the end of the day, the crowd ain't on the floor with you. You know what I mean? It's 94 by 50 feet. It's really what happens in between those lines. So hopefully for this young Sixers team, they can go out there and see that they can do it without all of that, and it kind of proves a vote of confidence for next year. Because once you lock in on that level, that's when things really seem to change for players.
Shams reported yesterday that it seems they might resume play late July, early August. This is the first time we are hearing August in the mix. When you look at their postseason and how they're going to get it done, and maybe the NFL season as well, because that kicks off in September, do you think that maybe going to a best of 5 would be in play over going full game 7s or maybe some sort of round robin? How do you think they can get through this if they're going to start in August and still factor in starting next season?
I mean, we talked about this, you know, this morning on Process, and I think you had it right when you said it needs to be shortened up. It can't – the 7-game series is just – unless those games are played closer, which to me that's not exactly good because it's still the length of an NBA game and guys are still kind of get worn down. Maybe go back to the 5-game series, you know, for the playoffs, and then the finals are 7 games. Or, like you said, a round-robin tournament. But I can't imagine, you know, several series of 7 games through for each team. That's a lot. And obviously we're starving for it. We won a lot of basketball, but not at the risk of somebody getting hurt or everybody getting to the finals and just being wore out.
So how long do you think these players are going to need to kind of ramp themselves back up? They're talking about a late July, early August. If they said to you, Darryl, you're suiting up, we're going to have a season that's going to be about, 30 more games or so starting August 1st, how much time would you need?
Probably need a good 3 weeks to realistically put. I mean, to put out something good, is you got to understand, guys been apart for so long, so you got to get them back in shape. But more than anything, you got to get that camaraderie back. You got to get back to playing 5-on-5 basketball and really the flow of the game, man. Nobody want to, they go out there and look like they got hit with the Space Jam juice. Like I said, that's going to be a bunch of ugly basketball. I'd rather see them. I say that 3 week period is probably it. A week to get in shape, a week to really get up and down, and then that last week to really just kind of fine tune some things before you go and play somebody else.
Damian Lillard was pretty open about not wanting to play if they weren't able to have some sort of opportunity to make the playoffs. Could you imagine being in a situation where, first off, the season gets put on hold for 3 months, and then you're able to go play basketball again? But hold on, you don't really have a chance to make the playoffs. You just have to go out and play. I mean, how would you handle this situation if you're in Damian Lillard's spot? Would you be pissed off as well?
Hell yeah, just like Damian Lillard. I love him because he's a true competitor. Like, you can tell he's one of those guys. He's not out there just trying to get a check. Like, he really wants to win. You see what he does every year in the playoffs when he gets his chance. And they were a bubble team. I think it said they were about three games out for definitely. You don't want to wait that long just to go out there and truly be a spectator sport where your games don't matter. Like, a guy like Damian Lillard, the real competitors in the league, they're out there to win. And like I said, he does it. It's Dame time every time he gets off to the playoffs. So why not let him do it?
Darryl Ray's with us here, and you look at this. By the way, you can follow Darryl on Twitter at D-Ray the Director. Follow him there, D-Ray the Director on Twitter. Darryl Reynolds. All right, so the Sixers right now are matched up with the Celtics in a 3-6 matchup. That would be the Eastern Conference matchup. If they reconfigured to do a 16-team seeding, they would still match up with the Celtics. The Sixers have been asked, both Elton Brand and Brett Brown, about the Celtics, and both of them hinted that they have been preparing for the Celtics. So, how do you see a matchup with the Celtics? Because the Sixers have kind of owned the Celtics until later on in the season. They beat them 3 times early in the season, and then the last time they lost. The Celtics had owned the Sixers in previous years. It's now kind of turned. So how do you see a matchup with Boston?
I mean, Rose is probably over there laughing right now because he knows exactly my answer is going to be, because we talked about it this morning. But for me, I love it. I think for this team to grow, it's really going to have to embrace some challenges. And it's so funny how you said with Joel Embiid not having that crowd there and players saying he feeds off of it. I think it's time for the Sixers to grow up. And quite frankly, the Celtics, to me, are one of those teams you got to go through to grow up. So many great players, LeBron, Kobe, so many great teams, the Bulls, the Lakers have had to go through the Celtics. The Celtics have like this reputation. It's very Boston to them, but they're disruptors. And I don't think the Sixers can get to where they're trying to go without knowing fully, truly, when we see them in the playoffs, we can beat them. And we didn't see that, last year, quite frankly, I think because Al Horford. I think at the end of the day, Al Horford being on the Celtics was the biggest thing. And I think that's why Elton Brand went to get him over any other reason. But for me, I would love to see them not only go up against the Celtics, but crush them. And if they don't make it any further in the playoffs, that vote of confidence of, all right, we got their number, we can get them, I feel like that'll pour over in the next season, and that's when we'll start to see this team really get on the road. But it's just the Celtics, they have this thing about being the disruptors of the league. So I'm for it. It keeps happening. It keeps popping up. Somebody said a collision course. I think it's the perfect way to say it. Like, let's go. You know what I mean? Just go right at them, get over with.
Now, at Villanova, did you ever have a team that it was sort of like Sixers Celtics where you guys could not get over the hump? You specifically, maybe as a freshman, you couldn't beat one specific team in the Big East, and then eventually you finally got over the hump? We were hoping, by the way, that the Sixers eventually do that. But at Villanova, was there ever a team where you just personally kept grinding up against and then you finally got over the hump?
Seton Hall. And it wasn't that we couldn't beat them. It was just every year but my senior year, they had beat us at some point in the season. And it usually came when it hurt the most. I remember freshman year, Sterling Gibbs, Big East tournament, first round game. He hits a step back, ends the game on a step back jump shot, real Kimber-like style. First year of the new Big East, he stands up on the table. That hurt. The next year, we're at their house, they beat us. And then the following year, they beat us in the Big East tournament. So those 3 years, for us, it was we need to get to a point where we beat them 3 times. We beat them twice in the regular season, and we're going to see them in the tournament, so get them there too. Seton Hall was that team for us. But like I said, it's something about getting over that hump. You know what I mean? Villanova, everybody talks about it, around the 32. They keep losing around the 32. It's something about getting over that hump that almost makes you feel unstoppable because it's the part you kept getting to and, falling short.
All right, Darryl Reynolds, the NBA, hopefully is back when they say July, early August, which is still a ways off, but at least it feels like we're getting closer. The whole bubble down at Walt Disney World. You know what's interesting about that, too, is you won't have these stories, or at least we don't think, where, like Michael Jordan traveling to Atlantic City, getting out. Like, you're trapped in that. So it might even some things up for everybody,
Gambling with Mickey Mouse and them. He would have found a way. He would have found a way. He'd have been betting on what Goofy really is. But nah, man, it's going to be great. And thank y'all for having me on, man.
All right, Darryl Reynolds here. Don't forget, check him out, Dre, the director, on Twitter, The Process Podcast, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. That's funny because the Seton Hall, it seems that even still to this day that they're kind of handling Villanova at times. They seem to be a little thorn in the side. Darryl Reynolds, the 2016 Villanova Wildcats champion, and of course he's the co-host of the Processed Podcast, where you can check out them going deeper into the Sixers, Celtics, the NBA's return, and some other stuff.